Hello and welcome back to the channel that brings you the most important financial updates affecting millions of South Africans, especially our seniors, grant recipients, and vulnerable households. If this is your first time here, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss another critical alert. Now, let me get straight to the point. There's a major development unfolding right now in South Africa that could drastically impact the monthly income of millions of citizens. We're talking about the possibility of SASSA grants being reduced in the very near future. Yes, you heard that right. Government insiders, financial experts, and SASSA sources are now warning that due to rising national debt, budget tightening, and political uncertainty, some social grants could be facing cuts, and sooner than expected. This is not just speculation. There are already early warning signs. And in today's in-depth update, we are going to break down exactly what's happening behind the scenes, which grants may be affected, why the reductions are being discussed, and most importantly, what you can do now to prepare and protect yourself if these cuts become reality. This is not a video you want to skip. This isn't just news, this is about your food, your transport money, your medicine, your family survival. So stay tuned right to the end, because the information we're about to share could seriously impact your next SASSA deposit and your financial stability for the rest of 2025 and beyond. In recent months, subtle but serious signs have emerged indicating that the government may be preparing to scale back social spending, and SASSA grants are right at the center of the discussion. While no official cuts have been confirmed yet, senior Treasury officials have already sounded the alarm about the country's fiscal position. The budget is under enormous pressure, debt repayment costs are soaring, and revenue collection is falling short. At the same time, the government continues to fund multiple public obligations, including load-shedding solutions, salary increases for public servants, and emergency relief programs. In order to fund all of this, cost-cutting must happen somewhere, and unfortunately, early discussions suggest that social assistance could be on the chopping block. Some documents recently presented during a closed-door parliamentary committee session hinted at the possibility of either freezing future grant increases, delaying payments, or in the most extreme case, reducing the actual amounts paid to recipients. This means that while you may still receive your grant every month, the value of that grant may shrink, perhaps by a 50, a 100, or even more depending on your category. For people who are already living on tight margins, this kind of cut could be devastating. Let's talk about who's most at risk. SASSA currently manages over 18 million grant payments across various categories, including the old age pension, disability grant, child support grant, foster care grant, and the SRD R370 grant for unemployed individuals. But not all grants are treated equally when the budget is under stress. The most vulnerable to immediate cuts would likely be the SRD grant. This temporary relief program was introduced during the COVID-19 crisis, and while it has been extended multiple times, it remains non-permanent by design. Because it is not enshrined in law like other grants, it is always the first on the chopping block. There are already murmurs within the Department of Social Development that the SRD grant could either be reduced from a 370 to a 300 or lower, or possibly cancelled entirely by 2026 unless new funding is secured. Following that, the child support grant, currently at a 530 per child per month, could be vulnerable to either a freeze in annual increases or a slight downward revision of around a 20 to a 50. Though less likely, there have even been whispered suggestions that old age and disability grants, currently standing at a 180 per month, could be cut back to a 2000 or less, depending on Treasury's final budget allocations later this year. It's important to stress that these cuts are not guaranteed yet, but they are being discussed, and where there's smoke, there's often fire. Now you may be wondering, why would a government reduce payments to its most vulnerable citizens? Why would SASSA, of all institutions, be targeted? The answer, sadly, is in the numbers. South Africa is currently sitting on a national debt load of over 5 trillion, and nearly 20% of all tax revenue goes directly to paying interest on that debt, not even the debt itself. The economy has failed to grow meaningfully for over a decade. Unemployment remains among the highest in the world. Eskom continues to swallow billions in bailouts. Corruption continues to drain public finances. And all of this is happening at a time when the government is under pressure to meet international loan conditions, especially from organizations like the IMF and World Bank, which often demand fiscal restraint before they approve further assistance. So when the numbers don't add up, the government begins looking for what they call non-essential discretionary expenditure. And unfortunately, in the eyes of Treasury, not society, social grants are considered non-essential. That's despite the fact that for millions of families, these grants are the only income they have. Cutting these grants is seen by some officials as a necessary evil to keep the country afloat, even if it comes at the cost of immediate human suffering. Let's not forget the political side of this equation. South Africa is entering a highly charged political season. The 2026 general election is just around the corner, and the ruling party is under enormous pressure to maintain its voter base. Cutting grants in the middle of an economic crisis would be politically disastrous. It could result in massive backlash, protests, or even the loss of control in parliament. This is why you may hear mixed messages from politicians. On one hand, the Treasury is issuing warnings about unsustainable grant spending. On the other hand, ministers are publicly pledging that grants are safe. The truth may lie somewhere in between, where some grants are protected, while others, especially those seen as temporary or supplementary, get quietly trimmed or delayed. Already, some provinces have reported delays in SASSA processing times and shortages of funds for local relief efforts. These could be early signs of what's to come nationwide. There's also concern that any future changes might be rolled out quietly, without proper public notification, catching recipients off guard. Now let's pause and consider what these potential cuts would actually mean for ordinary people. For someone receiving an old age grant, even a small reduction of R150 per month could mean no more money for electricity. For a parent receiving the child support grant for 2 kids, a reduction of R100 total could mean fewer meals or school supplies. The truth is that these grants were never luxurious to begin with. They were bare minimum survival lifelines. Cutting them doesn't remove luxury, it removes food, safety, shelter, and dignity. Many pensioners rely on these funds to support not just themselves, but entire multi-generational households. People with disabilities often require extra transport, medication, and care that the grant barely covers. Reducing these grants in any way would almost certainly push more families into hunger and debt, and it could lead to a rise in homelessness, school dropouts, and mental health issues. In short, it would deepen the poverty crisis at a time when South Africans are already at their limit. So, what should you do now to prepare, just in case these cuts happen in the months ahead? First and foremost, stay informed. Watch government budget speeches, follow SASSA's official social media accounts, and subscribe to channels like this one where we break down the truth in plain language. Second, try your best to diversify your income. If you or someone in your household is able to pick up extra work, start a small side business, or even access skills training, now is the time. Relying solely on a grant, while understandable, puts you at high risk if changes happen unexpectedly. Third, check your grant status regularly. If your information is outdated or incorrect, you could be among the first to experience disruptions. Make sure your banking details are current, your ID is valid, and your contact information is correct. If you get flagged for verification delays, your payments may be frozen even before any reductions begin. Lastly, join community action groups. Often, the only thing that prevents harmful policies is public outcry. If the government sees that citizens are watching closely and are ready to speak up, they're less likely to proceed with unpopular cuts. Solidarity, especially in rural and township areas, can be a powerful force. Let's end on this question: will these grant cuts actually happen? Or is there still time to prevent them? The honest answer is, it depends. It depends on whether Treasury can find other ways to reduce spending. It depends on whether new revenue streams, such as improved tax compliance or trade recovery, can boost government income. It also depends on the political leadership's willingness to put people first instead of austerity. There are voices within Parliament who are strongly opposed to any cuts in social spending. Activist groups, NGOs, and religious leaders have already warned the government not to target grants. And with the elections looming, there's real political risk in touching something as sensitive as SASSA. But pressure is mounting. The next budget speech could be the moment where this debate turns into a decision. That's why now is the time for awareness, preparation, and collective vigilance. Because while the grants may not be cut yet, the writing is on the wall. So there you have it, everything you need to know about the serious risk that your SASSA grant may soon be reduced. This is not fearmongering, this is a warning backed by data, trends, and early signals from within the system. Whether it's the SRD grant, the child grant, or even the old age pension, no category is completely safe in this current economic climate. If you found this update helpful or eye-opening, please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit that like button to help this video reach more people, and share it with your loved ones so they can prepare too. And don't forget to leave a comment, let me know what you think about this looming threat. Are you worried? Do you believe the government will go through with it? Or do you think the people will push back in time? Until next time, stay safe, stay alert, and stay informed. We'll keep watching the situation and we'll keep bringing you the truth.